Francis, Julia, thank you very much for coming along again this year. So I'm going to ask you a few questions now that hopefully will help pupils decide, how best to go about applying to medicine and whether they've got any chance of getting into medicine. So Francis, first, what one piece of advice would you give to somebody who's considering a career in medicine and maybe becoming a GP afterwards?
I would ask them to try, if possible, to get some practical experience, ideally see what their GP does, but if not, then at least in areas which focus on community. So for example, in nursing homes, possibly a short hospital placement, but something where you're involved in caring and get the chance to talk to a GP about what they're doing. Very often this is organised by schools. Often pupils can contact practices and practices will come in, but more importantly, medical schools can often arrange the contacts as well.
Yes, and I'm aware of good work being done by Cardiff University as an example, Manchester, Swansea University, and this engagement, it's probably not been a better time, has there, for people to try and get into medicine. Well, that's how it feels to me anyway. Julia, we talked a little bit about transferable skills this morning in that talk, and what kind of encouragement would you give to pupils about transferable skills in the context of what Francis has just said about work experience?
I agree with everything Francis has said, by the way, and people get a bit worried because it can be difficult to get what people think is relevant work experience. If they don't know any doctors, they don't have anyone in the family who's a doctor or a healthcare professional, and it really isn't about that. So there are many things that people do, and the example we had this morning was a young lady who'd worked for a company which meant she dealt with members of the public, and members of the public who might be angry or a bit upset or a bit busy, and those skills are clearly directly transferable to many branches of medicine, including in general practice surgery, for instance. So it doesn't have to be medical experience. That can be tricky.
Yeah.
I'll qualify that slightly and say it's important you know what you're getting into if you decide to study medicine. It's a fantastic career. It's a very interesting career, and there's a niche for most people. But it's hard work, and you have to really want to do it. And I think sometimes students at school who are very bright possibly get pushed towards medicine without really thinking what it involves. So I absolutely agree with Francis. Knowing what the job involves is critical.
Okay. Now, last week there was fantastic news, wasn't there? BBC were reporting on a 23% increase in students or pupils from Wales getting places in medical and dental schools across the UK. Now, whilst we're not too sure where exactly those places are, is there anything that you could say that would encourage the children here today that they've got a good chance of getting into medical school?
Well, certainly we are highly supportive. Both the Welsh medical schools, Cardiff and Swansea, are actively supportive of Welsh applicants applying. That Swansea is a postgraduate medical school and we're mainly undergraduate medical school. And we look hard at all our Welsh applicants to see if they've got the aptitude, and our numbers have increased substantially in recent years of people basically being successful in getting into medical school with us, and we're hoping this is transferred to other parts of the UK as well.
Yeah, I'd read that the percentage of pupils now getting a place in Cardiff from Wales has increased dramatically, and that can only be a good thing.
Yeah.
And we'll speak to Dr. Fionn Williams in a minute about the new Carers project. But I think it's quite important, isn't it, for these pupils to be embedded in North Wales and in general practice, I think, if they're going to come back here to practice afterwards.
Yes, it's something, we would encourage all placements in and around Wales. We're very keen and tried to address one of the concerns was that students who are in Cardiff perhaps didn't get as much exposure as they could do across Wales, even though we obviously have always had placements across Wales. But we are hoping, we've got a new one-year scheme that some Year 3 students are doing, where they actually spend a whole year in either West Wales or North Wales to give them a much better chance to feel what it's like to be part of the community.
Excellent. And is there anything that you could add to that, Julie, in terms of what Manchester University are doing at the
Yes,
moment?
certainly. So Manchester is one of the biggest medical schools in Europe. We actively encourage applications from people all over the UK who maybe have no background in medicine or going to university, and there's a very active widening participation programme at Manchester as well, and that's partly why I'm here today. So there's a lot of help and support, there's a lot of information on our website, as there is on Cardiff's, of course, and I've just said to a number of the school students, I was the first person in my family to go to university. There was nobody medical at all, as was Francis.
As was
so
I.
It's absolutely possible.
Yeah.
And it's about making people believe it's possible and also showing them the practical steps they can take to significantly improve their chances. And the fact they've come along today, I think, is an important first step. I've looked at some of the information you've given them, which is fantastic, and which is very practical, sensible, genuine information about applying to medical school, with which the students, by the way, are concurring. They're saying this is exactly what you need.
Yeah, excellent. So, obviously, days like this didn't exist when we were, well, certainly when I was applying for medical school. How do you think this can help? Does this actually level the playing field in some way, in terms of those maybe who've had this kind of stuff in the past?
I hope so. I think it should do for 2 or 3 reasons. The first thing is that it means that school students from schools who haven't had traditionally strong links with hospitals or doctors have got a much better opportunity. The other is a trickle feed, which is we hope that the pupils who come today go and tell their friends, and that other people then think that, oh, maybe this is something I should consider. Also, people at school get put off from contacting universities, and they should be aware that both Manchester and Cardiff, and we would think probably virtually every medical school, have got medical admissions points where they can email and ask questions before they even apply.
That's interesting.
And it's well worth them doing that, particularly if they're thinking, is this good enough, or can I have a gap year, or would you like me to have some particular sort of experience? So they can get that knowledge even before they put an application in to maximise their chances.
Excellent.
And I completely second that. I mean, I actually looked myself again at the Manchester website the last month to see what was there. And there's loads of new information. It's a very high quality website. Many of the questions are answered, but there is a direct invitation to contact the admissions team if the answer is not there.
And I think you raised an interesting point, Francis, in that the trickle effect is important, and one of the biggest things for me about organising this day is for people to talk about general practice. You know, to have people have chatter, if you like, about general practice, and people might be more willing to consider it as a career. And I think the promotional side of this through things like Facebook and Twitter demonstrates that. You know, I've seen countless examples of parents sharing the promotional video, if you like, with other parents. And I'm hoping that, as you say, the pupils who come here today will do the same thing in the future.
Exactly. I remember when I was 15, I was extremely lucky. My father had a good friend who was a GP, and because my parents were abroad, I came to stay with them a few times, and that's gave me useful information. But you're right, at the time there was really nothing else. Yeah. And I think it seemed to me like a huge gap between where I was at 16 and getting into medical school. I was lucky to meet that person who could give me a few pointers.
Well, thank you very much both for your input and for some very useful information.